Of that landmark trial, and ABC's Mars Scatocampo joins us this morning.
Football legend is accused of double murder.
It's going to be a long trial.
In what's been called the trial of the century, O.J. Simpson seemed to face an unsurmountable battle.
Okay, hello. Today's video, I was inspired by Eve Conwell's video, A Murder of Fatal Mistake. And I thought, as a non-law student, again non-law student with no legal background, no knowledge of the law, I'm going to try to attempt to understand a criminal law case, a murder case, the O.J. Simpson murder trial. Simpson was charged with the murder of his ex-wife, Nicole Simpson Brown, and her friend Ron Goldman. And O.J. Simpson was married to Nicole, and they had 2 kids, and then later on in the marriage they filed for divorce, and then they were divorced, and Ron is just, a friend of Nicole's. So murder happened in 1994, and the trial began in 1995, and the trial lasted 8 months, if I'm not wrong. Okay, so I'm going to break down what the prosecutors claimed and what the defense claimed, and then later on explain the problems that went wrong during this whole court case, and probably why O.J. Simpson was acquitted, which a lot of people till this date don't believe that he is actually innocent, and many believe that he is guilty of the murder of Nicole and Ron. Okay, so prosecutors. Okay, so first, Nicole's sister testifies that O.J. had been abusive to Nicole during their marriage, so there was really signs of domestic abuse, which is also an offense. So there is no ink in this. I don't even think you can see that. Whatever. Second, Nicole's neighbor testifies that around 10:15 p.m. she hears a plaintive wail coming from a dog. And I don't know, I'm not a lawyer yet, or a law student, but I don't know how credible that evidence is. But moving on. Detective Mark Furman, who testifies that he found bloody gloves at O.J.'s estate and says that he has not used racial slur in the past 10 years. And why that is so important to take note, and why he said that and why he emphasized that, is because they didn't want people thinking that the LAPD was racist, and that's why they want to prosecute and prove that O.J. Simpson is guilty because he's black. They didn't want racism to overshadow this court case, and they didn't want to seem as if that they really had a stigma against O.J. Simpson or any discrimination against him, which the defense could use. So yeah, there is no ink in this anyways. So next is that DNA lab director links DNA evidence to O.J., which to me is like super big, because that forensic evidence must mean a lot and must show quite a significant point. But, moving on. 5 photographers testify about pictures of O.J. wearing gloves like the ones linked to the crime. Gloves. So that is the prosecutor's claim. Another piece of information that I didn't mention was that, can you hear my dog? Was that after the funeral, after Nicole Brown's funeral and Ron's funeral, O.J. actually fled the scene and he was trying to get away, so there was like a car chase, which to me is already an offense on itself, because he was most likely a suspect and he was running away. Probably a big part and big evidence to prove that he may not be so innocent, but still at the end of the day, as you all know, the verdict was that he is innocent. Defense, they claim that O.J. could not fit into the leather glove, and prosecutors were told O.J. to put on the gloves and see if he could fit into it. And many believe that this is also such a pivotal moment, because this is what moved the jury's decision to really believe that O.J. was innocent. One of the reasons, at least. Another thing was that witnesses claimed to not have seen anything unusual at 10:20 p.m., bringing the time of murder into question as well. So a lot of what the defense claimed is basically proving that LAPD cannot be trusted, and they were unreliable. So other stuff that they said the defense claimed was that there were blood preservatives in the blood that was found, which and accused the LAPD of actually planting blood samples. Also, I forgot to mention that
the defense did bring up interviews which showed that Furman did use N-word and still used racial slurs, and he was lying about having been non-racist and not discriminatory.
I think a lot of the things and a lot of the claims that the defense was making is to prove that the police and LAPD was mishandling all the evidence, and basically to bring race into this whole trial. Race played such a big part, and race plays a part in everything in America, but particularly in this case and in this trial. Okay, I don't think necessarily is where things went wrong, but how the defense won the case in the end. So what the defense did, they used this lawyer called Johnny, Cochran, and he was a huge critic of the LAPD and was able to change the subject to invalidate the LAPD instead of talking about the murder. So he was able to convince the jury that the evidence was fraudulent and they shouldn't believe anything they hear, and that basically this whole case was a racist scheme, and to prove that blacks are never going to get their way and they're never going to be freed. The jury consisted of mainly black people. There were 9 blacks, 2 whites and 1 Hispanic. What Johnny Cochran did was he claimed that OJ had been set up by a racist police department and tried to prove that the police were nowhere capable of actually handling the case properly. So the trial lasted again for 8 months, and it only took 3 hours for the jury to decide whether he was innocent or guilty, which is actually a very short amount of time. So where things to me went wrong was that first, asking OJ to try on the gloves. So when I was watching this video of Christopher Darden, who came in later into the scene, if I'm not wrong, and he was a very young and very new lawyer, and he actually asked OJ to wear the glove. In his interview now, he says, going back, he doesn't know if he would have done that because he said it could have easily been on an act that he couldn't wear it, and it was just a show that it was too tight, and that is his downfall. But at the same time, he was so sure that it was going to fit, and he was so sure that those gloves were OJ's. Detective Mark Furman, big mistake he did was to lie to the jury and to the public, because it became such a public trial and such a public case that everyone knew about, that he was not racist, and basically he's like been free of racism for 10 years. The other thing was that Maria Clark, who is the lead prosecutor, was described as cold and calculating, and Clark turned off many black female jurors who viewed the courtroom style as harsh and aggressive. So of course they were probably not leaning towards her, and that's probably a big reason to why they also brought in Christopher Darden, who was a black lawyer, and he was very young, and again, I said just now he's very young, and he wasn't very experienced in the courtroom. I said again, at the end of the day, the verdict was that he still is innocent and is not guilty of the murder of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman. However, later on, the Goldman family did try to file for a report, and then they went into civil court, and O.J. Simpson was found to be responsible for the murder of both Ron and Nicole. In America, there's this country's double jeopardy law, and no one can be tried for the same crime twice. So in the criminal courts, he cannot be tried again. So even if new evidence was found, Simpson could never stand trial for the murders that he had already been found not guilty. But he did participate in a civil suit brought by the Goldman family, and Simpson was found liable. So liable, so responsible for the deaths of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman. But it's not the same to be found liable and to be found guilty. So he only had to pay a sum, a very, very, very large sum, $35 million, I think, to the Goldman family for being liable for the murder of his son. And basically, from what I can summarize and from what I've read, which probably is not a lot. So in the criminal courts, you need the whole jury to decide whether he's guilty or not. But in the civil courts, you just need 50% of the evidence to prove that he is guilty. Why did it blow up? And what was the controversy? And on surface level, of course, it's the idea of racism because it was and it still is such a big thing in America. After the verdict was given, many of black people cheered, and it's now found to be that they weren't cheering because, oh, the death of 2 white people. They were cheering not for O.J. Simpson, but because O.J. Simpson's defense attorney was actually a black man himself who played the situation really well, and he used what normally is against people use against him against them. Does that make sense? Many people had feelings that had little to do with sympathy for Simpson, a man who had turned his back on the black community, which I find quite ironic because in all his interviews as an NFL star, he did not want to be seen as someone who's black. He always said, I'm not black, I'm OJ. And yet people were grateful that he wasn't treated like all black men were treated, which is basically he wasn't discriminated in court. This whole racial scheme was the highlight of the case instead of the murder itself, which I think is rather unfortunate because I believe in fair justice and fair trial. But if you're looking at the case itself and the evidence itself and evidence brought forward, it seems that if this was a case between a white guy who murdered 2 people and the same evidence was found, it would be clear and there would be no doubt that that white guy would be guilty of murder and the jury would find him guilty. The whole idea of what actually happened and just wasn't relevant anymore, and it was all just a racial fight in the courtroom, and that's how I saw it. And again, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a law student, so many other facts probably played in, so I don't know, but that's my opinion on this whole case. Okay, I don't know why it's not like that.